Today, for the issue of the week, we're talking about the Haverford Township Free Library and some of the things you need to know that are happening right now that are going to impact your pocketbook. Today on the issue of the week, we're talking about the Haverford Township Free Library. Now, you may not know this, but there was a meeting, the Board of Commissioners meeting in April, where we talked about the library, and the library came and presented its current plan. Now, this is part of a much bigger conversation that we need to have about all of the different plans that are going on here in the township and the way our money is being invested, because obviously we're paying for this stuff, and so we need to know. These are the important issues going on. Now, there's a big plan that involves a brand new police station, a brand new administration building, and as part of that plan is figuring out whether we're going to renovate the library or whether we're going to build an entirely new library. Now, I really wish we were going, honestly, with the plan to build an entirely new library as part of this new complex that involves the police station, the township building, but that ship has sailed. The plan as it was proposed or as it was decided upon in the April meeting is that the library, after doing all its research about options, has decided to stay right where it is, and we are going to invest $5.5 million into the renovation of the library. Now, I'm in favor of that. I think we need a really strong, solid library at the core of our township. I think any town worth its salt in America has a strong library at its core, and we have one of the strongest libraries around, even with all the problems that it has. We have 300,000 visitors a year using this library, and that is the busiest library in all of Delaware County. Now, you may not have known that. Now, the problem with that is that we have a very old library. The original part of the building was built in 1926. This was a bank. It's been expanded since then, but it's been a long time. Things are falling apart. Things need to be modernized. There are actually, things that are not in compliance with the Americans with Disabilities Act. They were grandfathered in for certain things. Those things need to be fixed, changed, modernized, upgraded, because libraries are changing. What they do is changing. Our library has fabulous programs going on. They are tied to the business community. If you own a small business in Haverford Township and you are not tied in with the library, then you need to explore the programs that have been developed there. It's fabulous. There are great things for all different age groups here at the library. So I'm not going to spend any more time here talking about the value of the library. It's absolutely critical. We need to support the library. We need to help it renovate. We need to make it the best possible library it can be. The Achilles heel to our library is the parking problem. It's always been a problem. With 300,000 visitors a year and only 17 parking spaces, you can tell that people are going to get frustrated. People are going to have trouble parking at certain hours of the day. They're going to go and either leave in frustration or go to another library, even though this is the one they want to go to. So what's the plan? Well, the plan that was proposed at the commissioners meeting here in April was to acquire the residential property at the corner of Greenway and Mill, tear it down, and extend the parking lot. Okay, if you look at this aerial picture, you can see the certain logic to that. I mean, extend the parking lot, get a little more space out of it. What's the downside? Well, there's a few. You're only going to get about 12 spaces is the estimate that they have. There might be a way to squeeze out more, but the thing is, you have to actually build a barrier between that parking lot and the residential neighborhood that you're encroaching on, because obviously the neighbors are not happy about this plan. I've spoken to several of them. They are not happy about this plan. They don't want a parking lot moving into their neighborhood. Would you want to be next door to a parking lot when the house you bought was actually next door to a house? I'm going to guess not, and people are rightly worried about what that's going to do to their property values. So what's the option then? If that's the plan, is to tear down this house and extend the parking lot, well, I want to show you here this other picture. If we look at the residential block on the one side, but the commercial block on the other, we see that there's a big parking lot sitting right there. And you'll notice in this picture, and if you drive by most times of the day, you'll notice it looks pretty much like this. There's not a lot of cars sitting in that parking lot. And the reason is because that used to be the Citizens Bank, and it's now the new home of Dr. Faust's orthodontic practice. And an orthodontic practice is not going to fill 20 parking spaces. There are only going to be a couple of patients coming and going, one at a time, two at a time, as they kind of rotate through. So that parking lot is sitting there. Now, the township doesn't own that parking lot. The library doesn't own that parking lot. But before we buy a house, tear it down, upset a neighborhood, and do all that, shouldn't we at least explore a conversation with Dr. Faust and say, hey, what if we work out some kind of an arrangement between the library and your parking lot? Now, if you look, there's an alleyway that connects that parking lot with the library parking lot. The only thing blocking it is a fence. So yes, we'd have to talk about the right of way of traffic moving through that alleyway, and we'd have to talk to the owners of these other commercial buildings. But again, before we tear down somebody's house and disrupt an entire neighborhood and the feel of that neighborhood, we've got commercial property on the other side. We've got a parking lot that's sitting there that at least has as many parking spaces as what you're going to get from tearing down that house. So I want to invite all the parties to be part of this conversation here. I'm going to reach out to Dr. Faust. We're going to try and have a conversation about what the plan is for that parking lot. We're going to track down who the owner is of the other commercial properties there and see whether there's any openness to a long-term plan to have the library or the township acquire these buildings over time so that there's room for the library to expand and for parking to expand. I've already spoken to several of the neighbors in the neighborhood, and I know they're not happy, so we'll see whether any of them are going to be comfortable to come on the show and actually talk about their concerns about what's going to happen to their neighborhood if the parking lot moves in there. So this issue of the library touches on a ton of other issues, but I'm going to leave it at that for today's issue of the week to not make it overly complicated. But over the next few weeks, I want to explore how these different problems interrelate with each other, how the planning that we do in this township sometimes goes off the rails and doesn't actually stay focused on what could be a viable solution here that doesn't cause as much trouble. I want to explore why we've decided to renovate the library in place and not move it into a brand new facility. There's obviously going to be reasons for why that is. They might be excellent reasons. I'm not saying that they're not. I just want to know because, hey, that's the theme of this show. Who is doing what and why? So let's explore these things before we get totally locked into a plan that might have some pretty negative unintended consequences. So until next week, this is Dr. Mark Kosman signing off from the 7th Ward, where we are learning all kinds of things about what's going on in our own backyard.